Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about smoothness issues and smooth fine tuning of the transmission system of the Gelande II chassis. Now, the reason I'm making this video is to share with you what I have discovered and what I found works for me. I'm sorry I didn't film the process. This wasn't something I planned. It is something that I discovered while I was working on my Defender. Now, this is the transmission. As you all know, it was in my Gelande II, and I discovered that the gear here had some smoothness and running issues, and I'll tell you exactly what I meant. When this is installed, the motors here and the motor cog will be connected to this part here. And what I want you to do to see if you have this issue, to see if all your gears are smooth in your transmission, and what you have to do to have a look is to just go up to your motor first. Now, this is not the issue, but to move on from here, first thing you have to do is you have to move this gear here like this, and there should be a clicking sound, and that's when it makes contact with your other gear off the motor, your motor gear. And all you do is you just move it a little bit. It should be 0.5 millimeter or less, or a piece of paper's width distance from the other teeth. So instead of completely being connected, and when you move it, it moves with the other teeth, it should be like this, click, 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 kind of like that. This is exaggerated. So just a tiny bit of movement before it makes contact. So a little bit of an air gap between the teeth, or the cog teeth. And that's how it should be connected, and that's running fine. Here's the pinion gear installed. As you can see next to my wheel here, I'm just going to move this spur gear, and that's the kind of gap you should be hearing. It doesn't need to be super wide. All it needs to be is a tiny gap to make sure that they are not connected together completely. Here's a close-up of that movement there. And if that's the case, then that's installed absolutely correctly. You don't have to worry about this. But to test this spur gear, next thing you have to do is remove the pinion gear, which is just by removing a very small screw there. So the next thing you want to do is to move this gear like this. If you're having clamping or pressure issues that causes this to be not smooth, then this gear will feel like it's being magnetized to something. So it will move along like this, probably here very smoothly, and then suddenly it will go click, and then it won't move left or right, and you put a little bit more force, and then it starts moving again, and then it'll go click, and it will feel like it's being magnetized to something. And what that is the cogs inside binding. Again, it's another binding issue, but the binding is not actually the issue in this one, okay? If you are feeling that, then uninstall everything. I'm afraid you're going to have to uninstall your transmission like I have here. And what you need to do is just undo, or loosen, not undo completely, that screw there, 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 and there. Only probably half a turn out so it's loose. Once you've done that, try and feel this gear again and see if you still have that issue. If you don't, then I'll tell you what the problem was. These two halves are the transmission case, and when they're screwed together, they hold all the bearings and the gears in place. Now, this transmission is made very well in that it absolutely does not need any shimming, because there is no slack anywhere. The problem is it actually needs to be de-shimmed. Well, not de-shimmed because it doesn't actually have any shims, but the space between everything, the tolerances, needs to be reduced. Because what's happening is when you put these screws in, just very slightly tight, not even tight at all, just nip tight, there'll be a perfect fit. But once you tighten this up a little bit more to make it sandwich tight, then what it does is it sandwiches the gears together too much, putting an immense amount of pressure on them, and it holds them together so tight that it causes binding issues, that this will feel very rough, like it will move. When you're trying to move it, it will move like this because it's not smooth and it's binded together. Now, I'm afraid I'm not going to take my transmission apart because I've already just put it back together after a whole day of working on this. And I'll tell you what I had to do. I'll try and draw this. You're going to have to forgive me. But once you take the transmission case apart and you take this off here, you're going to get a washer there, that spring screw, and then another washer there. This can come off, And this gear here, what this is connected to, comes up to here, and this is kind of what it looks like. Forgive my drawings. It's going to kind of look like this, get a little bit thicker. There is a pin there, and this is where the bearing goes. And then there is a step there before you actually get the internal gear. There's another step there. And this is the gear, it's like this. And this is where the outside comes from. Now, when the two halves of the transmission case are screwed together, this bearing butts up to here, and there's another bearing on the other side that butts up to here. The problem is, the tolerances are so tight that they put an immense amount of pressure here. So what you have to do is sand down this portion here, okay? And I'll tell you how I did that. What I did was I took my drill and I wrapped, after uninstalling the pin and the bearing, I wrapped this shaft here in some paper, very tightly wound around so it becomes quite thick, and I put my electric drill over it and tightened it down so it clamped down here without damaging the shaft. So once I turn my drill on, this would spin. I then placed a piece of sanding paper, so it was folded many times, and all I did was put it here while this was spinning, and that would take this part down here. I hope this is making sense to you, but those of you who have this gear out, you'll understand what I'm talking about. This portion here, which is, I don't know, maybe 0.1 mil, maybe, I'm terrible at measuring, could be 0.2 mil. So this part here needs to be reduced by just a few microns, maybe even reduce it by half. And the same on this side. Once these two parts have been reduced and you install everything back together, the pressure from the two halves won't compress this part too much so that this can move freely. I'm sorry that I didn't take any pictures or videos of this while I was working on this, but I'm afraid it was not something I planned. In fact, look at the state of my hands, and this is from hand sanding using sandpaper and a drill in the winter, in the cold, without a heater, because my workshop didn't have a heater at the time. But that's what I did, and now I'm pleased to say this is how smooth mine runs. But this was a major issue because this was very, very notchy when I was testing it. Everything is tight, all the tolerances are good. There is still no play, if you look here, there's still no play in anything at all. No slack, but it's just right. You do have to sand down these parts quite a bit. I mean, with the drill going and the sandpaper being changed, I think I went through about half a sheet of A4 sanding paper of small pieces being folded down to about this size maybe, and we was using it, drilling and then spinning it, having the sandpaper here, and then doing it on the outside, and then cleaning it off again, and then sanding them off. This felt kind of tight. When I was trying to spin it like this, I literally couldn't do that. It would have to go click, 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 click like that as I was moving it. It was something that I've only just noticed, but I guess that's how it was from the start. So that's what I've been working on. I believe this probably impedes efficiency, and it probably will affect the smoothness of the ride. What I'm going for is I'm trying to get the whole thing as efficient and as smooth driving as I can get it on my very tight budget. But that's everything I wanted to say today. Hope this video helped someone out there, and I hope you understood what I was trying to put forward here with the imaging and everything, with my very, very sad drawing, I'm afraid. But I really don't want to put these all back together. I mean, I've just finished Loctiting these in. One thing I will say is when you're tightening these, probably use 3 fingers like this and up to as strong as you can get it with maybe just a finger and a thumb, and that's tight enough. You don't want to really wrench down on it because that's when it's going to put massive pressure on all the components and everything here. As long as you've got Loctite, it's going to hold it together very fine, and stop it from backing out through the vibrations, but you really don't have to really kind of screw it down like crazy. So, hope this video helps someone out there. Thanks for watching.